Apparently ako lang ang speaker, nakakaya naman. So, by the way, if you have questions, don't ask them, okay? I don't answer. They're just kidding. So, at the end, I'll try to answer your questions. For the topic for tonight, I'm not the SME, I'm not a subject matter expert. However, I've used it before. So, I'd like to share with you something that I've dabbled with it a bit. And I don't know if you've heard of Squeel. Have you heard? Squeel, squeal. Parang, squeal? Not? Okay. So the makers of Squeel, what they say is, if SQL daw is a pig, Squeel daw is an exciting pig daw. So, kesha Squeel daw. It's more of like SQL, a play with the word of SQL, SQL, Squeel, something like that. Anyway, so, by the way, I am Joselino Luna. Just call me Joey. Nobody calls me Joselino. So tonight I'll be discussing Squeel. So it's more Ruby-like, for more Ruby-like queries. So I'd like everybody to, are you guys still into RDBMS? Have you moved to more non-relational databases like Mongo or something? Or both? Still using both? Still using both. So great. So anybody using Rails 5? 5 na kayo? Really? Walang prize pag mag-5 kayo. Okay. Just a question. Walang prize. Okay? So anyway, if you're using 5, you might not be able to leverage for discussion for today. Because hindi pa siya supported ng 5. However, for most of the population is still using 3, 4, Squeel may help you with your SQL queries. So, to start off, let's do a recall. So, simple queries. Of course, we're all familiar with that, diba? So, the usual stuff. When somebody asks you, again, let's look for an exact match, for example, for anything. So let's say you have a student object, and then you want to look, for example, for the first name, you can pass a string or a collection or an array, right? So the response or the reply will be either one or more in the collection. Multiple conditions. So here the example is more of like a method chaining, where you have multiple words. We're all familiar with that, right? And of course, conditional by association. So for example, you have a student, the student has grades. Of course, when you want to look for the grades of the students where it's, for example, 98, so you do an include or a join, and then you do a word, okay? So that's clear for everybody. However, what if, for example, your project manager says, oh, so let's make things more complicated, as what they always do, diba? So, joke lang yun. I still have a job tomorrow, huh? So, for example, now you wanted to get your students. We're in, for example, you're doing, for example, analytics. So, for example, you're looking for all students who are age 20 and below. So, what you're gonna want to do is, for example, get the birth date which is less than 20 years. So, traditionally, can you do that without passing an SQL statement? Anybody? Can you do that without passing? If it's a range, is it possible to pass the arguments without an SQL query? Usually, what people would do is, they, for example, do a word, whatever conditions you have, and then you'd say, for example, a string, an SQL string, where birth date is, for example, greater than, for example, 20 years ago, right? Or less than, sorry, yeah, greater than or equal to 20 years ago, right? So, for example, if you have matching, like for example, you want to get, for example, names of people who start with JO, for example. So, usually what people would do is, for example, first name, like, and then the query string, right? But the problem is, for example, if you're, for example, moving from MySQL to Postgre to, for example, Oracle, sometimes there's like, sometimes there's I like, remember? So, sometimes the problem with these things is that although they work, and of course, some people are very adept to SQL, the abstraction is kind of difficult to manage if ever, for example, you're moving from database to database, especially for migrations. So enter Squeel. What is Squeel? So Squeel is more of like a DSL that makes queries more Ruby-like. So think of it as like you're trying to make it, you're trying to map out your SQL statements into methods, or into operators, or into predicates. So it works in the concept of blocks. So for example, if we go back, with traditional queries, your where conditions are inside the arguments. It's an argument, yung conditions mo. it's inside the open and closed parentheses. They're all just arguments. With Squeel, what happens is that instead of them being arguments, they become inside blocks. So because of that, if you implement Squeel, it's backwards compatible with your existing code. So what happens is that if Squeel sees it's not a block, it implements it the traditional way. But if it's inside a block, the curly braces, then it knows it's Squeel. It provides, as I've said, a better abstraction. And of course, it's compatible with Rails 3 and 4, not yet with 5, because 5 was just rolled out officially June 30, right? Official release, final release. So, the feature, it might be updated for 5. So, what is Rails with Squeel? The good part. Okay, so remember a while ago, I said, what if you do a range search? You'd say birth date in a string. Sorry, this is supposed to be a string. Hindi ko nalagyan ng quotes. So, and then 20 years ago. With Squeel, what happens, it becomes a block. So where a block starts, and it's like a regular Ruby condition. You say birth date is greater than or equal to 20 years ago. For matching, if we do this as an SQL statement, afterwards, it's just like a regular condition, first name dot like JO. So it converts it to more Ruby. You see the conventions more Ruby-like. Sabihin niyo kung nag-agree, okay lang. You can agree? Okay lang? Okay lang. Okay. So, how do I get it? So you start, of course, it's just a gem. So you just say gem Squeel and then you run bundle install. Simple as that. So let's go to the basics of Squeel. Squeel works with stubs, predicates, and also key paths. So stubs first. So for stub, it's just like a symbol. Think of it as a symbol. So this is a stub. This one. This is a stub. Okay. What happens is you can still use the same query, like for the word, if you're just looking for one thing. Translated to Squeel, it becomes a block. But since we're using blocks, if you enter a symbol or an element of a hash inside, it will think it's actually a hash, which is not, because it's a block. So you have to encapsulate it inside a hash, which becomes like this. So this is your stub, okay? So this is your building block right now. So you can implement the same query with Squeel this way. However, people don't really do that because what's the point? The good thing about Squeel, you can combine method chaining of traditional active record and Squeel at the same time. Okay. Key path, on the other hand, is using sort of like, think of method chaining or association chaining. So for example, if you have a student and your student has grades, and the grades have subjects, and the subject has a teacher, traditionally, if you want to do a join, you'd say student.join grades, you'd pass a hash of the subject to the teacher, right? So you'd have a join. Don't believe me? Believe me? No? Yes? No? We can run that actually, yeah. So, I'll show you the difference, okay? So, I have a prototype working. So last night, I made student records last night. So, for example, you have a student object. So you have a student object, okay? So now you want to get the relationship. So you want to do a join. So for example, joins. Traditionally, your join would be, for example, grades would have a subject, and each subject has a teacher. Okay. So there, you have a relationship there. Okay. In Squeel, instead of doing that, you just do an association change. So, diba, student has grades, that it has subject, and it has a teacher. Ay, sorry. Joins, sorry, kailangan pala block. Hey. Remember, Squeel always use blocks. So, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Yes. Sumobra yung aking ano. Delete. Yeah, there. So, there. So, if you think of it, it's more of like, sorry. So, if you think of it, if you're thinking of active record, diba? When you're looking for records, you think of, for example, if you have a student, dot grades, makuha mo yung grades ng lahat ng student. If you do a dot subject of that grades, makuha mo yung subject ng, diba? So, it's the same thing. So, it uses the same trail for your joins. Oops, sorry. Where am I? So, yeah. So that works, thankfully. Okay, so now with predicates. So, what are predicates? Predicates, what are predicates? Programming language 101, programming predicates. Predicates, sir. Anyone, may price. Diba? When you have a subject, ganito tayo, language. When you have a subject and a predicate what? It describes the subject, okay? So usually a predicate has an action. Strictly speaking, parang gano'n ang predicate in programming, right? Except that, usually a predicate answers Boolean true or false. So, if you look at these, all of them actually return true or false. So, that's what predication means. So, it means in SQL, actually when you put conditions, they're always answerable by yes or no, by true or false. Diba? So, for example, in Squeel, what happens is that it creates predicate methods for your SQL operations. So, for example, the equals is now equal. On the other hand, there's also an operator version which is double equals, just like Ruby. And then the rest, like dot equals, dot equal, there's also an alias for them. So, example of predicates, like for example, okay, so example of predicates. If you do exact search in Squeel, you can do, say, for example, student.world, last name equals do. Parang Ruby lang. Or you can use the method way, which is dot equals, dot eq, okay? On the other hand, if you're not used to using this, if you look at the documentation of Squeel, if you have time to read, you can actually alias the methods to actually create an alias method. Like for example, you can do dot equals is alias to dot eq. So flexible rin yung Squeel if you're not familiar, if you're not used to the method naming. For example, for matching, there's also like the like. For range, like I said a while ago, you can use the less than, greater than. For connection, this is actually just an SQL in. For example, select ID in 1, 2, 3. So this is in. The converse is not in. So, and then predicates and or more. Of course, the power of Squeel is that you can actually use in one word statement multiple conditions. So, for example, So, for example, you want to find. Dapat na mirror na lang ako, parang ko lang. So for example, you want to find a student who's also male. So you can say, for example, sex is male. However, you also want to make sure that his last name, for example, is Doe. So last name equals Doe. Oops, curly brace pala. O nga pala. By the way, in Squeel, each condition is delineated by braces, by parentheses. So otherwise kasi, if you remove the parentheses, sabihin mo, in regular SQL, in regular Rails naman, you can remove this, and then it's a set of arguments. However, remember, since these are operands, all of them are operators. Squeel will have a hard time determining where your operand ends and your operator starts again. So that's why you have to qualify it per um, uh, per item, per search query, yeah. So you can also do nested for that. So you can say like end, and then on the end, let's say may or ka pa, and then encapsulate them in one group. Nested is possible also at the same time. So back to our presentation. So there. So the nested is also possible. Okay. Also you have or, which is a single pipe. For the and is a single ampersand. And of course you have the good thing about Squeel is that it also has convenience methods attached to it. So all your predicates can be attached with underscore n, any and underscore all. So for example, like a while ago, you want to look for example, names of people. Traditionally, what you would do, if, for example, is, for example, we've learned that you can do multiple statements, conditions, right? So, for example, last name is equal to, for example, is like, last name dot like, for example, or, for example, last name dot like set. So that's possible. Or what you could do also is there's a convenience method that you can attach, which is actually any. So you can say last name like any, and then you just provide an array. So you say do or set. And parenthesis at the start, sobra. Okay, so it returns the same thing. So conversely, there's also there's any, there's all. All is usually used with not. So for example, not equal to any, for example, like this set. Okay, questions so far? No. Dismissed agad. Okay. And then joins, as we discussed before, you can do nested joins. And then you can also specify if your join is inner or outer. Like for example, in this case, you say student joins grades that inner or grades at outer. And then if you have a deep association join, like for example, our earlier example is the student has grades, has a subject, has a teacher. So convoluted talaga yung association yan para talagang nested. I know it's not optimized, but it's really meant to be convoluted just to show the example. So once dinaanan mo yung buong association, you can just, it also maps that association in between it. So afterwards, you can say were grades, not grades 97, because we already passed grade. And then grades at subject at name is equal to science, kasi we passed subject. And then finally, the last pass is in teacher, because ultimately, it ends in teacher. So everything na dinaanan niya sa path will also get mapped automatically. So you can just do, for example, if you're going to do a query of a join na sobrang inner or sobrang nested, eh dito mo na siya i-join sa pinakamalalim. Tapos you get the convenience of all those in between at the same time. Okay. The caveat, although, to Squeel is that it doesn't support by default instance variables. So to illustrate, for example, you have an instance variable that says at a is equal to. So for example, if you're going to do a query, will return nil because it doesn't see instance variables. So the three possible scenarios for you to be able to use your instance variable is one, assign your instance variable to a local variable. So you say a is equal to at a, and then you just use your local variable normally. Or you can pass or the other way is to supply an arity. So what happens is that you pass the query object inside. So you can say S, and then S that last name, and then you can already use your instance variable. And the third method is that you can encapsulate or wrap your instance variable to a my block. So you can say my, remove the arity. Will also be the same. So, but normally just use local variables. It's the easiest part, I guess. But just in case you need to use it, you can use instance variables, but you have to use these methods. There are other things that Squeel can do. Like for example, you can call functions. As I've said a while ago, you can do an alias. You can do a lot of other stuff with Squeel. So if you want to dab more into Squeel, this is just a primer introduction to it. You can read any of these. By the way, Squeel is actually based in Arel. So it was, well, it's kind of like that. And then you can visit the Squeel GitHub page. It has documentation about it. There's also a Rails class, and also a primer on Squeel on these links. So that's it. Got questions? Questions, guys? No? Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.